Just say no to unboxing videos. In this video, we are checking out the Flashforge AD5X. This may wind up being my new daily driver 3D printer, but we're gonna have to run it through all its paces to find out if that's really what this thing is going to wind up being. Now, in all of our videos, the way we do them is we set the device up, we run it through all of its paces, we test it out thoroughly, and then we go over all the pros and cons. Unbiased pros and cons. So if there's problems and I find them, you're gonna find out about them so you can make an informed decision if this is something you wanna spend your hard-earned money on. So I promised no unboxing video. This is not unboxing. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be setting it up. And the reason I'm going to be setting it up on camera is because they claim this thing can be set up and ready to rock and roll in 10 minutes. I've got my phone right there for a stopwatch. Let's party and see how we do.
Now we're going to be doing a lot of different prints and a lot of different kinds of filament in this video, but there is one print that I discovered through all my printing that should be your first print, and I'm going to let you know what it is at the end of this video and have the files linked, so you're going to want to stay tuned to the end.
10 minutes. And I actually kind of read the instructions. I'm impressed.
Now, when they claim 10 minutes, they didn't stipulate whether or not we were talking about 10 minutes to printing or 10 minutes to plugging it in. I was 10 minutes to plugging it in. It still took a few more minutes to get this thing set up, which involved turning it on, getting it on the Wi-Fi network at home, and running the firmware updates. After that, we loaded the filament. It did come with 4 spools of sample filament, which frankly, I would just throw these things in the trash. They wound up becoming a tangled mess, but I decided to give it a shot. I did get all 4 loaded, didn't tangle them into a ball, and managed to print one of their files, which was a 4-color benchy. But for the sake of testing, I wanted to print a benchy straight from their slicer, so I did it again with clear PLA, and it came out really nice, but in the process of which I managed to knock over my tripod, which broke the clip on my microphone. But the beauty of 3D printing is when you break stuff, you can just make new stuff.
So we've done some basic test prints now. Now I want to do something with some fresh rolls of filament. And something I noticed before when I was doing the basic prints was I'm used to my other 3D printers, single color printers, where the loading and unloading process was, I don't want to say complicated, but relatively complicated. You had to go through menu settings and all this other stuff. This thing does it a lot more automatically.
All you do is feed the filament into the IFS module. That's where all the filaments come in.
And as soon as it detects it, it comes up on the screen auto-loading, and it just starts loading the filament off the roll. The other thing, this is the first printer I've had that's had these. These are spring-loaded filament rolls here. So when you put your filament on, it's going to put a little bit of tension on it and hold everything in place. What I kind of dig about that is that means you're not going to have things unwinding itself, which I've had happen, and things getting tangled. Now, since I'm getting older, I'm going to forget which one's which, and I guarantee you at some point I'm going to put this on the wrong one and they're going to crisscross. So I think I'm going to take a Sharpie at some point and just write 1, 2, 3, 4 on these so I don't forget, because I know I'm going to forget. So now if we want, we can go into our filaments here and we have our different PLAs. So number 1 is here, 2, 3, and 4. And if we want, we can change in the menu so we remember each color. So now we can pick a file from here, but I don't want to pick a file from here. I want to print something a little bit bigger. So we're going to go grab a multicolor file on our computer and send it over to this so we can get something bigger and cooler. And I might as well fit the 3D printing stereotype and 3D print an articulated dragon with 4 different color filaments. But don't worry, after this one, I'm going to get to printing some pretty cool stuff, including some 3D printed watch parts. All right, so our print is done, and if this thing printed correctly, we should have all of our colors on there, and this thing should be articulated. And it looks like it is. And we've got ourselves a little articulated dragon. Pretty cool. But this is kind of a cliche in the 3D printing world, so now I gotta actually start printing some projects. One of the projects I've been working on is 3D printed digital watches. I think I bumped it, it's starting again. But one of the projects I'm working on is 3D printed watches. I'm going to be printing out some of those parts and then some ABS car parts. This should be fun. So now that we're done with that print, I'm going to pull all of these filaments off because I want to get them into my dry boxes. But what is cool here is I have just been doing this. Now there is an unload feature. I've not actually been using it. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be using it, but what I've noticed is I'm just able to unwind these spools. Don't have to unload it the way you would normally unload a single filament printer. And as I unload these, I notice over on the screen, they are disappearing one by one, showing that they're no longer there. So like I had mentioned before, I do have a 3D printed watch project that I'm working on, and I'm going to be doing it in a couple different colors. We're going to be using a little bit of gray, It's exciting. This is the first printer I've had where I could do this. Then we're also going to be doing a little bit of black on this print. Then we're going to do some white filament. And I've been having some trouble deciding what color I'm going to make the buttons on this watch. So I think for now, I'm going to go with red. And I haven't really seen any other videos that actually show how to set up the multicolor print on here. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. So the first thing you want to do is set up yourself in Orca. So when you come over here, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. You come over here, we're going to start setting up the filaments. We're going to add a filament, add a filament, add a filament. So we've got those 4 filaments. Now we're going to tell it what colors. And you can actually change how you see them. So we're going to go with our first filament color, and it actually doesn't have it, or doesn't show it. So we're going to come over here, we're going to go gray. They're calling it aluminum, whatever. So we got our first one set up. Now we're going to go to our second filament, and our second filament is black. And our fourth filament is red. So we've got our 4 filaments over there. Now we're going to come over, I'm going to grab the file and put it on the print bed. Now we can set up the different layers, the different colors we want. So we're going to come up here to the very top and go color painting. Now you can go with a couple different size, spheres, triangle, height range. So we're going to go with height range, and we're going to zoom way in here and pick our first filament, which is going to be black. So we're going to do the body of this thing in black. Okay, so we got the body of it in black. That top ring up there is going to be in gray. So now when we print this thing, it's going to be printed with gray and black. And I'm going to do these all separate on the print bed. So I'm going to be printing this watch face first. So now we've got it set up. I have it basically the easy side down. So I flipped it. We've got gray there, black at the top. And there are different tools you can use. You can use a circle tool where you can kind of paint circles in there. You can also use triangle tools. We're using the layer tool here. So now from here, we're going to go to preview. It's going to show it to us on the print bed. And I definitely do want to put some supports in here because of the way this thing is going to be laid down. And then because this is a watch, I want it to be very sturdy. So we're also going to be going up to strength, and we're going to be changing our infill to 50%. So now we can come up to slice plate. It's got everything. It's going to take us 23 minutes. Print plate. We're going to select our printer and our PLA. We need to select our gray PLA coming off of the first spool and our black PLA coming off of the second spool. And now we can send it to the printer. And in 23 minutes, we should have a watch body. And we can print the back, the pushers, and some of the other support parts, and our watch will be ready to assemble. So it looks like I dawdled too long. I made myself a cup of tea and came out, and it looks like the gray portion, the first portion of that ring, is done. And now it's switching the filament out in here. So what it does, you can see back here, I've got this little box, collects all, everybody calls those poops. There it goes. So it's purging out what was in the head. It's running the new filament down to do the black, and it'll do the black on top of that. So now we've got the black filament loaded. It's printing the other portion of the body in black. Then we'll move on to printing the other parts and the other colors. So our watch body is done. The watch body actually came out really nice, really clean. And I do want to mention the bed adhesion here has been very good. I actually had to put the camera down to pull the plate off and get this thing unstuck from the plate. But now let's get the other parts printed. And I'm going to be using some different colors, but what's nice is because these are already loaded, I don't have to reload anything. I'm just going to run back to my computer and send the other files to it. Now we've got our watch case back to pop off the print bed. Case back came out really nice. Now we got to do the pushers, and there's a little ring that goes inside. Pushers we're going to do in red. Haven't decided on the ring yet. All right, pushers are done. These are always a little bit of a challenge to get off print beds because they're tiny and there's more support than pusher. And the movement holder is almost done, and I made this one in black and red. It should give it a cool little red accent ring when you look inside the watch, but we'll see what it looks like when it all goes together.
The 3D print design and the circuit board of this watch was all developed by James Cox over at The Printable Watch. Very cool guy and friend of the channel. I will have a link to his website. If you want to check out all this stuff, you can download the 3D print files and get full instructions to make not just digital watches, but automatic watches as well. I do have a complete build video of this on my other channel dedicated to my crippling watch addiction. It's called Watch Workbench. I'll have links to those as well. If you want to give 3D printing watches at home a try, it's a lot of fun and not as hard as it seems.
So we've done a lot of printing so far in PLA, and if you know 3D printing, you know PLA is the most common and the easiest filament to really usually work with. But now I got to do some work in ABS. This is a Meshtastic node. This is printed in PLA, and you can see PLA has this problem where it doesn't like heat. And this thing was left in a window in the California desert and it warped. ABS wouldn't have done that, so we're gonna print this thing in ABS so it holds up a little bit better. So let's offload the printer from the PLA rolls and load up some ABS and print this sucker out in ABS. I want to see how well it does, and I'm also going to show you some tricks you're going to have to do to get successful prints in ABS. So we've got our rolls of ABS, and I'm actually going to be putting these on the lower spools and not on the upper spools, and I'm going to show you why in a second. So this one is going to go into number 2, and then our black filament we're going to roll, and then our black filament we're loading into number 3. So now we have to do a few more things before we can print because we're printing in ABS. The first is bed adhesion. Bed adhesion is an issue with these printers, with a lot of printers, and we're gonna see if it is with this one. So I'm gonna print this thing with nothing on the bed, just straight clean print bed. I've cleaned it with isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, but I'm not putting a slurry down or glue stick down or anything like that. We're gonna see what happens. The other thing is this. ABS doesn't like fluctuations in air temperature and it doesn't like cool air temperature. It needs to be very warm. Now, this unit, you can get an enclosure for it, sides, but I don't have that. I may be ordering one, but in the meantime, I'm going to be using this, and I've used this with all my other printers. This is actually a greenhouse that you get on Amazon for like 20 bucks. That's why I put these on the bottom, because this thing tapers up. I assume you can probably fit it all in there, but we're going to try it on the bottom. So we throw this thing over, and it prints inside this. This allows the air temperature inside to get warmer because it's trapping in the air. And it also prevents, it looks like actually this thing is fitting over everything perfectly and not interfering. So this enclosure should work. We'll see if it does. And if it does work, I'll leave a link down below so you can grab one of these for yourself. And our first couple layers of printing has started, and things so far are looking pretty good. We're actually laying down plastic, and it looks like, I was looking at the edges really close in there, it all seems to be adhering pretty well to the print bed, but time will tell. Well, I was out here getting set up for another video that I'm working on. It's actually a front door lock video. This is a long story. Anyway, it started making all the funky noises that it makes when it does a filament change. So it means I'm over to the other layer of filament, and it has done the filament change and starting to lay down the next color in ABS. So the print heads in the back there doing a purge right now of the plastic, but you can see there, we've got black plastic laid down on top of the white plastic. The image is a little hazy because I'm going through that hood, but we've successfully printed some white, now we're printing black. It should be a little bit longer, and then we can take a look at the part, see how it did. So my phone just alerted me that my ABS print is done. So let's go check it out. It looks good from here, but let's get close up on it, and then if it's good, I'll print the rest of the case and get this thing put together.
And it looks good from afar, but far from good. I definitely think this needs a little bit more support material.
Well, guess what? Somehow when I sliced the last one, I turned off supports instead of turning on support, so that was 100% operator error. So now I'm kind of excited. We're going to get to see what this thing actually looks like. I got a notification a little bit ago the print was complete. I was in the middle of something else. And yes, it looks a lot better. We've got actual support material where we needed it. So let me clean this thing up real quick. We'll take a close look at it. All right, this is much better. This is actually really nice. All those holes are really perfect. It even got the little logos, the power logo and whatnot on the side there. So I'm going to print the rest of this case and get that node reassembled. But now we know ABS is A-okay. So we're printing the next part of this print, and it looks a little funky because we're printing, or we're filming through the enclosure. But check that out. When I sliced it, this thing decided it wanted to put it at an angle so it wouldn't have to run supports, because both sides of this would have needed a support. I was skeptical, especially in ABS, but I just sent it, and it's printing at like a 45-degree angle with no supports. So I'll be really interested to see what this looks like when it comes out. Right now it's about 70% done. Well, we flew too close to the sun. We made it 70% through. I walked inside, I got the ding it was done, and we made spaghetti. This thing broke free of the print bed, fell over, and I made this nice little pile of spaghetti. But I do want to take a look at how things were looking up to that point, which are actually really good. Good enough that I want to give this a second try. Well, second time's a charm. It definitely did it. Check this out. It printed the entire part at a 45-degree angle with basically no real supports other than some stuff right down there at the very bed. Wow, that's cool. I'm going to print the rest of this box and get it assembled.
And yet another shameless plug for another one of my videos, or a series of my videos. I did a whole series on Meshtastics. So if you want to get into this nerdy hobby like I did, you can check out those videos. It'll show you how to get started for just a few bucks.
All right, so it has been several weeks that we've been printing with this thing, and we've learned some stuff along the way. And here's where I'm going to get to that thing I teased at the very beginning of the video, the first thing you should print when you set up this printer. And that's actually behind it. And that is this thing right here. This is what people are affectionately calling a poop chute. And I made it in brown filament because, well, poop chute. Anyway, every time this thing changes filament, it has to purge the nozzle of the filament that used to be in it. How it does that is it sends the leftover filament, the little poops, down this chute, then dumps that little poop out this hole, right out the back, onto your workbench, or behind your workbench. What this does is it creates a little chute. The little poops go down the chute. It lands in this little box. You can easily take this off and throw out the poops. Now the poop chute here is not my design, but I will have a link for it down in the description below because if you buy one of these printers, this is the first thing you should print. So now it's that time of the video because I've been living with this thing for several weeks now and doing a ton of prints on it. What are my thoughts and what are the pros and cons? First, let's go over the pros, and then because not everything's perfect, we'll go over the cons. That way you can make an informed decision if this is the printer that you want to spend your hard-earned money on. By the way, if these kind of honest DIY tutorial videos are your speed, hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot of stuff coming your way just like this, and it really does help the channel out and supports all the stuff we do here. Anyway, here are those pros. First and foremost, this is a very affordable multicolor 3D printer. There are several different brands that are making 3D printers that can print multiple color. This one is one of the more affordable ones and it performs very well. I've only had a couple failed prints and they were my fault because I did things like forgot to activate supports, deactivated supports, and stuff like that. Other than that, the only other failed print that I had was that ABS print that I showed, and that was kind of a sketchy print to begin with, and it came loose from the print bed. I don't really blame the printer for that. I blame the slicer. Of all the printers I had, this is the easiest filament loading and unloading process I have ever dealt with. I can load all 4 filaments on this thing or unload them at the same rate I would be able to do one on my previous printer. The accuracy and precision that this thing puts out is on par with every other quality 3D printer I've used, and you can see that especially in the 3D printed watch that I made, where all the tolerances have to be very close because everything has to fit together well. I've actually printed that same watch on other printers where things didn't line up quite right and I had to do some filing. I didn't have to do any of that with the one that came off this printer. The assembly, like I showed at the beginning of the video, was no joke. We did manage to get this thing completely assembled in pretty much exactly 10 minutes. So the setup was pretty quick, and if you noticed, I actually looked at the instructions. The footprint of this printer, meaning how much physical space it actually takes up, is actually pretty small. With the rolls loaded on the side instead of the top, like my previous printer, it is not as tall. It actually fits better inside that tent thing that I showed with the ABS printing. Speaking of ABS printing, ABS, like I said, I've had a very finicky time with ABS. It doesn't like to stick to certain build plates, and some printers just struggle to print ABS in general. This thing did just fine with ABS. I printed a couple prints that I haven't shown on camera on ABS, and I'm about to be doing some more. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, I know I just spit out a lot of really nice things to say about this thing, but not everything is perfect, so let's talk about some of the issues that I came across with this printer. First and foremost, the thing I just showed you, the poop chute. I don't know why you would design a printer and have it shoot trash out the back of the printer and not design something to deal with it. You have to print something, which I guess is fine because that's what these things were made to do, but having a chute that just dumps things behind your counter seems odd, that there's not any sort of a basket to catch stuff in. So the first couple prints came out just fine, and I think this may have been an issue of the belts breaking in, but the belts seemed to stretch just a little bit, and then I started noticing some layer shifting issues, and the belts had to be adjusted. And these, although they're not the hardest belts to adjust, they're also not the easiest belts to adjust. You can get in there and put some tension on them. Once I did that, everything was fine. Another tricky thing that I ran into, and if you've done a lot of 3D printing, I know you've had this happen to you. I had a piece of filament snap inside one of the tubes. And that happens a lot with PLA because PLA gets brittle when it gets damp. So what happened was it snapped inside the tube and I could not get the piece of PLA out because it wasn't getting on either side of the little pushers or the pullers that are going to pull the filament through. The only option is to remove the tube itself and push it through, which shouldn't be an issue, except taking this mechanism apart is a pain in the butt. The extruder side is actually much easier. The front of it is actually held on with a magnet, which is very cool. But then I noticed that all of the parts in here, including, I don't know what the name of them is called, these things, are made of plastic. And plastic is not going to hold up forever, and they look like they're proprietary parts. So I'd have to buy stuff straight from them instead of getting the generic off-the-shelf parts that I can get for a lot of my other printers. Along that same note, the nozzle seems to be a proprietary nozzle for this printer, which I understand because it's a different kind of printer. But it means you're going to be having to buy nozzles straight from them. You can't just buy a big box full of nozzles and swap them out as needed. Now, you probably won't be having to do a lot of nozzle swaps unless you're printing with filament that is more abrasive, like stuff that's got carbon in it. Glow-in-the-dark filament's a little bit more abrasive and tends to yoke out nozzles. So, something to think about. Now, what does it boil down to for me? Now, for me, I really like this printer. It's getting everything done that I need to get done at an affordable price. There is an enclosure you can get for it, so I don't have to put that tent over it, and I'm going to be getting that sometime soon. It also has a camera feature so you can monitor it remotely. I may or may not do that. I've always said I wanted one of those, but I honestly don't think I'm ever going to look at it. So it looks like right now, this is going to be my new main printer in my garage, and I'm going to be doing a lot of projects with it. This is one of them. This is my old RC10. If you are into the old RC hobbies or grew up around my area, you probably remember these. This is my old RC10, and I am planning on getting this thing back on the road. I have one down there that I'm going to be restoring. This one I'm going to just be driving. So I'm going to be printing a whole ton of parts for this thing out of ABS so we can get this thing back on the track. So if you want to check out videos like that, hit that subscribe button down below. If you have any questions about this printer, 3D printing, or suggestions, please leave a comment. I'm always happy to answer questions down in the comment section. I will have links for this thing and any coupons that I happen to come across to save you a few bucks if you decide you want to purchase one of these. Give this video a big old thumbs up, and of course, thanks for watching. But the actual hardware... Uh-oh. Looks like it's surviving. The accuracy, precision, I can't talk today. The accuracy...